everyone, this is Peak Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you in our 10 out of 10 movie review series, and in this edition we'll focus on the Vietnam War masterpiece Platoon. Released in December the 19th, 1986, it stars Sheen, Tom Berenger, Wilem Dafoe, alongside some early smaller roles for the likes of Keith David, John C. McGinley, Forrest Whitaker and Johnny Depp, and it was directed by acclaimed director Oliver Stone. And Platoon as a movie serves very much as a semi-autobiographical account of Oliver Stone's own personal experience of the Vietnam War, where he served a tour as an infantry soldier. And that fact alone is probably why, for me and a lot of film fans, Platoon remains still the greatest ever Vietnam War movie ever made. Now, many will consider that a big statement given the amount of great war movies that we got certainly in the late 70s and early 80s surrounding the Vietnam War itself. And yes, we had some truly magnificent movies in that time, very much covering the before and after perspective of the Vietnam War. First Blood in 1982, starring Sylvester Stallone as the iconic John Rambo. Born on the 4th of July in 1989 with the brilliant Tom Cruise as the Vietnam veteran Ron Kovic. And The Deer Hunter way back in 1979, and all three of those films brilliantly conveyed that perspective of dealing with the post-traumatic experience of the war itself. Apocalypse Now was very vivid in its imagery, but that felt very much of a fantastical account. Casualties of War was a very harrowing and emotional retelling of more of a single incident within the Vietnam War. Now, Platoon firmly focuses on the experience of the war itself, and for me portrays the most realistic and believable recreation of Vietnam and the events that took place. The movie is just full of gripping tension and suspense, an incredible and vivid immersive experience, making you as a viewer many times feel like you're actually there. The veracity of the action and combat sequences are filmed with such an expertise and precision. Whilst there are outbursts of violence, it's not gratuitous, it's not overly graphic. It's violence that when it happens, it really hurts and leaves a lasting impact and really stays with you long after you finish watching the movie. Unlike so many modern day war movies today, where the staging of the combat experience is superb, but it feels empty, lacking any emotional weight, feeling all too much like a video game. Platoon avoids this by letting us spend time with the soldiers. In the beginning, we travel through the movie via the lens of Taylor, the lead character played by Sheen, with very early narration of letters to his grandmother, detailing him getting to grips with his early days within his first tour. We get reference how he hated his family life, how he wanted to remain anonymous, tired of the lectures of his rich family, and we see Taylor in the beginning very panicky, anxious as an unexperienced soldier. We spend time with the other soldiers, seeing how much of their personalities and perspectives of the war, early on partying and chilling out, smoking marijuana, and this is very much classic storytelling, getting an insight into the smaller moments of harmony and happiness before unleashing the full horrors of the war. Very much the calm before the storm. And when we get to the war, Platoon is so unflinching, it doesn't hold back at all. There's no sugarcoating here, no sentimentality, no jingoistic heroics, no clear good guy, bad guy for the most part. The soldiers here are presented as scared, vulnerable, exhausted, dehydrated, confused and paranoid for the most part. We go through the full scope of emotions as one could only imagine going through something like this in real life. There's very much of a shock and a stark and bleak realism. We see soldiers getting blown up in traps, getting nailed to a tree. We have multiple scenes where soldiers on 1 minute just walking through casually and in the next minute getting ambushed. The film goes even further when the platoon occupy a village and we see soldiers beating down, shooting and killing and assaulting and raping villagers, really all on impulse, seemingly completely lost in the sense of what they're doing. There are other soldiers that are left shocked and dumbfounded about what they're witnessing. It all remains difficult to watch and really plays on your conscience, knowing that events like this in the film actually happened. I can only perhaps think of Casualties of War, a movie that equally pulls on your emotions in the same way. The film's moral compass is centered by three central performances. Sheen is solid as Taylor and convincingly conveys enough of the naive and innocent emotions going through this journey in the beginning of the movie, which help draw you and sympathise with this character. At this time, along with Platoon, Sheen also starred alongside Oliver Stone again a year later in Wall Street, and it very much seemed that Sheen was being primed to become the next young superstar of the 80s alongside the likes of Michael J. Fox and Tom Cruise, but sadly that didn't come to pass, and in this role he really is the pivot of two more incredible and superior performances. And this is embodied both by Wilem Dafoe and Tom Berenger, who both represent the two opposite ends of the moral spectrum in terms of the war. Wilem Dafoe plays Elias, the movie's conscious, once believing in the war but now seeing it for what it is. He solely believes now that the soldiers are there to lose the conflict, and he's much more of a considerable and sympathetic personality. We see multiple scenes where he's far more forgiving and supporting to the new recruits despite the mistakes they make. He's not afraid to call out the misdeeds and the misdemeanors caused by the other soldiers and report them if necessary to the superior officers. And this is what makes him such a rootable character, along with very much conviction and purpose about him. It's a brilliant performance by Wilem Dafoe. Now this is very much in stark contrast to the even more incredible performance by Tom Berenger as Barnes, complete opposite of Elias. He's intense, psychotic, murderous, completely numb to the effects of the war. We get that brutal scene where he kills a woman villager in front of her husband and family. This effectively is the incident that drives the conflict between him and Elias. Berenger, with his physicality and size, is purely madness and insanity personified, amplified even more by his facial scars and appearance. Now people may see him as the cliched bad guy, but it's far more complex than that. Barnes is that soldier who is too far gone, lost in the chaos of the war, a result of sending men to this conflict, resulting on them being completely corrupted by the experiences that they become immersed in. It's a compelling and outstanding performance of Berenger, and I believe it's the best of his acting career. Going back to that sense of a moral conscience throughout the film, and that feeling when watching this movie is evoked no more so than the musical score and its centerpiece, A Day Go for Strings. Such a composed, emotive piece of music. It really elevates so much of the death scenes and the reflection that we see amongst the soldiers right throughout the film, giving that sense of real pathos and sadness, and again really hits you on an emotional level. This is highlighted no more than the movie's iconic sequence. Without spoiling it too much, the sequence ends in a Jesus-like pose with one of the soldiers. We see them in their arms aloft. Such a powerful imagery and emblematic of the film overall, and it's rightfully used as the movie's poster. So impactful and well directed, and I think this is one of the key reasons why Platoon connected so much with many audiences upon its release. So as usual with this film series, the score is obvious, 10 out of 10 for this film. So we'll talk overall about the film's release, and after an initial struggle to get the film made to begin with, on a budget of $6 million, the film was a massive success, grossing over $138.5 million in US box office alone, becoming one of the biggest hits of that year. It was met with high critical acclaim and reviews upon its release, and this was emphasised even more so when it went on to win 4 Academy Awards at the Oscars, this being for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Sound and Best Editing. It also announced Oliver Stone as a major director within the industry, having earlier writing credits on masterpieces such as Scarface and Conan the Barbarian. Oliver Stone would then go on to direct some truly exceptional movies that, as well as being commercially successful, were very critically acclaimed and would go on to win multiple Oscars. We talk about the likes of Wall Street in 1987, Born on the 4th of July in 1989, and JFK in 1991. And when we look at so many of his films, I honestly feel that Oliver Stone is quite underrated as a director and doesn't get the praise as the likes of Scorsese and Spielberg. On some level, he's made just as important and impactful movies as those other celebrated directors. Now, we could debate as to whether Platoon is his best movie overall, and I think that's a conversation worth having, but it's certainly up there. I'll definitely put it certainly in the top 3 of his best movies. And Platoon itself truly stands, as I feel, a true war masterpiece. It is the greatest Vietnam experience because of its more realism. There's, as I mentioned before, no sensationalism, no caricatures, no cartoonish antics. It's very ambiguous in how it portrays the war, and I think ultimately that's the best way to appreciate it. And I always say that the great films are movies that work on multiple levels, where we have the characters asking themselves, why are they fighting, what's the cause of the war, and will it lead to a better tomorrow? And that really transcends to the viewer and overall asking yourself, and what's the true meaning of war? What conflict is truly justified? It's those difficult questions that is posed throughout Platoon, and that's what for me makes it one of the greatest war movies of all time and a 10 out of 10 movie overall. So those are my thoughts and feelings and review on Platoon. Let me know in the comments below if you've seen the movie. If you have yet to see the movie, I highly recommend you watch it, and if you do go on to watch it later on down the line, let me know in the comments what you think about the film overall. Please also hit and like those subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality movie reviews and content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay safe distances, and I will see you very soon.